I don't know about you, but I constantly find myself in this cycle where I'm like, I have nobody in my life to talk to about all these books that I'm reading, and I want to socialize about books more. So then I join a bunch of book clubs because I read a lot. So I'm like, I can handle multiple book clubs, like it'll be good for me. So I'll join like 3 to 4 book clubs or like rejoin ones that I've been part of in the past. And then because I'm in 3 to 4 book clubs, I'm like, dang, I have no time to read the stuff that I actually want to read as opposed to like the stuff that the book club tells me to read. So then I quit all of the book clubs. I read my own stuff that I want to read. I have nobody to talk to about these books that I'm reading. And I go, dang, I should really join a book club. And the cycle repeats. So I thought that I would tell you guys about the books that I have read this year alone for book clubs, because right now I'm in one of my phases where I'm in a lot of book clubs. So here are the books that I've read. It is the middle of March right now, so it's been like 2.5 months, and I've already read, I think, 4 books for some different book clubs that I'm in, and then obviously I'm in the middle of some because book clubs are never ending until you quit. First book that I read for a book club this year was To Smithereens by Rosalyn Drexler. I read this literally in a weekend because I found the book club online like a couple days before their meeting was, and the book was pretty short. Let me check how long it is. Goodreads says it's 200 pages. So To Smithereens is about a young woman named Rosa. Notice the similarity with the author's name, Rosalyn. And Rosa is homeless, and she meets a man actually at the movies because he is touching her unconsensually, which she's into. And her and this man start dating. He takes her in like to live with him because she's homeless. And then he kind of realizes like, oh wait, we actually need money to live, and you're unemployed and I'm an art critic, so we should really do something about that. He convinces her to participate in, it's kind of like a fetish for him, but also like a real career. He wants her to become a professional female wrestler, which for some reason she's like, yeah, okay, I will. And I'm gonna like it. What about that? So yeah, she gets into female wrestling. She enjoys it like of its own merit, not because of like how it makes her partner see her. And she becomes like semi-successful. She travels and tours like as a female wrestler and wins some matches. This book I thought was kind of like a fever dream. There are a lot of characters in it who are very out of touch with reality, and whether or not you want to label that as like crazy or delusional or on drugs or seeing the real truth of the world, whatever you want to call it, they are out of touch with what society is generally up to, which lends a level of unpredictability to the book that is interesting. You're always like kind of guessing like what people are going to say next and what direction the book is going to head in. I also think that a lot of these characters who are out of touch do often like end up spitting out these lines that are kind of like not prophetic, but like a genius truth almost, that, you know, an average person just going about the day-to-day motions of life might not actually come up with, but the characters in these books kind of just spit out this knowledge that I found really interesting. I'm gonna read a quote for you that I think kind of sums that up. "Trouble was, everyone I knew was a creep, and every situation I got into confirmed it." That is true. Every situation that she gets into, everybody's a massive creep. Not to say that that's bad, just that the people she encounters in this book are massive creeps. So I read that whole book, and then I get like to the end, and there's a little author's note or about the author or something, and it turns out actually that the book was based to some degree on the author's real life. She was at some point a professional wrestler, which I thought was very interesting. I didn't put that together when I was reading it. I probably should have, because her name's Rosalyn and the character's name is Rosa. So like, but I thought that was interesting also to think like, oh, a lot of these crazy events that happened may very well actually be real. Then I read Perfection by Vincenzo Latronico. This book was a lot. It's about a couple, I believe their names are Anna and Tom, and they are from an unnamed Southern European country. In my head, it's like Southern Italy, but it doesn't say, could be anywhere. And they move to Berlin together. And they have like creative jobs that they do as a work from home situation. And they kind of have like, you know, the setup for what could be considered a perfect life, but they feel extremely unsatisfied all the time. They're constantly searching for like ways to feel important and feel like they're actually contributing to the world and to their community. There's a chunk of the book where they're attempting to help, I believe it's Syrian refugees who are showing up in Berlin, but they kind of realize that they don't actually have many skills that are very helpful to that because they don't speak German, they don't speak Arabic. They spend most of their days like on a computer adjusting graphics for websites and things. So like there's nothing that they can really provide to these people who are really in need of help in their community, and they feel kind of like unsatisfied with that. They go on this long journey like throughout Europe, I think maybe actually even throughout Italy. So maybe they're not from Italy if they go to Italy, trying to find like a new place to live that they think might kind of like re-spark their joy for life. I found this book to be very sad, actually. I thought, it's like, it's disheartening to read that this couple has, what you could define as having everything, but they feel deeply, deeply unhappy. And when I went to the book club meeting for this book, I was surprised that a lot of people actually were very unsympathetic with the narrators. They're not narrating it. It's written like third person. But a lot of people were like, they didn't even bother learning German. They didn't even try to like fit in with their community. They should have been more responsible immigrants, which may have a point, but I kind of think that that is a slippery slope behind like, do you have to learn a language of a country that you move to? Is that mandatory? What language do you have to learn if the country has multiple languages spoken? Is it really that much of a crime if you are an immigrant to only hang out with other immigrants? Because that was also something that people critiqued about the characters, is that they only hung out with other people who were not from Germany. Is that a real dilemma that we need to judge these characters for? I don't know. My personal beef with the book, regardless of how you feel about that specific dilemma, was that the ending, which I won't spoil for you, I did not find it to be like a justifiable resolution of everything that they were struggling with throughout the book. I kind of felt like we were following them throughout this deep dissatisfaction for a long time, like years, I would say. And it just kind of like resolves itself out of the blue, which I didn't think was a deserved ending for the characters. My next book club book was Loved One by Aisha Muharrar, and the other two books that I mentioned were for book clubs where I didn't actually know anybody going in. Like it was book clubs of strangers, like organized through, whatever public forums. This book club is organized by my friend. I don't know personally a lot of the other people in the club, but we've had the club running for a while, so I know them like on a talking about books level. This book club also is different from my other ones because we read like little chunks at a time and then like meet every week, as opposed to like when I think of a regular book club, usually you read the whole book on your own and you then show up to the meeting and discuss, which usually is like a monthly basis. So this book, Loved One, is from the perspective of a woman named Julia. When she was a teenager, she studied abroad in Barcelona, and she had a brief relationship with a man who was living there because I think his mom was a professor at her school, and that's how they met. He was a musician at the time. He remains a musician. They end up breaking up, like, even while they're still in Barcelona. It's not a long relationship. Then later down the line, they reconnect when they meet in LA, and they are just friends at that point, and they stay friends for a long period of time after that. He becomes a successful musician. She becomes a jewelry maker. They both find success in their life paths, and they stay in touch and support each other through that. Then, after a years-long platonic relationship between the two of them, they do end up sleeping together. Shocker. He then, this is not a spoiler by the way, you find this out very quickly. He then ghosts her. She cannot reach him at all, which is crazy because they were best friends for a long time, so for him to go completely off the grid is very unexpected. And then he dies in a freak accident. And now she has all of these questions about what happened, why did he ghost her, what did it mean to him, was he upset with her, should she be upset with him? And she can never resolve any of this with him. It can only be resolved or not resolved within herself because he is no longer with us. So the book is about her trying to make peace with that and kind of find the answers that she is searching for. And the plot of the book is that she is on a mission that his mom sends her on to go get some of his stuff back, because they think that a lot of his stuff was left with his most recent girlfriend, who he was with at the time, but his last ex-girlfriend, and she lives in London, and she does have some of his stuff. So Julia travels to London of her own volition, tracks down this woman, and tries to get all of his stuff back. Now, with that whole description of the plot, I thought it was very, that's a very enticing hook. That is a great story. I'm very interested to hear about her grief and trying to find these answers that she can never really get. However, I didn't think that the book actually was able to accomplish that. I think that sensational of a premise kind of promised too much to the reader, and the author just wasn't really able to deliver. I didn't think that it was particularly insightful. I didn't think that the story itself was crazy enough, considering how crazy the idea for the story is. I got bored reading it. It just wasn't as good as I was hoping it would be. I forgot to mention this, but another problem that I had with this book was that Julia is constantly harping on the fact that people don't always believe her when she says that her and this man were just friends for a very long time. But why would we believe you when you do end up sleeping with him? And I think that playing into that idea kind of does discredit the idea of a real platonic friendship between a straight man and a straight woman. I think that can exist, and the fact that Julia seems to also believe that, but her main example of it is a straight man that she does end up sleeping with even after they vow to remain friends, it really discredits every straight male-female friendship ever. Don't say that. If you've always liked him and always wanted to sleep with him, just say it. It's okay. But don't be like, that's my friend, and how dare you ever insinuate that we had anything going on, because we didn't. You did, and that's okay. You did. Next book club book was Tangerinn by Emanuela Anechoum. I loved this book so much. I thought it was so good. This is about a woman, I believe her name is Mina, and she is originally from southern Italy, and her father was an immigrant to southern Italy from Morocco. She now lives in London, and her family stayed in Italy. Her father ran a bar there. The book begins basically with him dying while she's not home with her family. So she gets the call in London, hey, your father's passed away, you need to come home and deal with death stuff. Her life in London is very interesting. She was really struggling to get on her feet after first moving there, and she relies a lot on her roommate, who is a very privileged white woman who has a lot of money. And when I say she relies on her, I mean not just in a financial agreement, even though it does seem as if her friend is funding her a little bit, but she relies on her on a personality level. She gets a lot of her opinions from this woman. And her roommate, this woman, is very politically opinionated and kind of tells Mina oh, you should do this and you shouldn't do that, and this is offensive and this isn't. And Mina, who herself is a woman of color, accepts this information and believes it and is okay, got it, will do. So it's a very interesting dynamic that she has going on in London. But she has to leave, she has to go back to Italy to deal with the death in her family. And her family there is her sister, her mother, and her mother's mom, her grandmother. And she spent a lot of time reckoning with not knowing really who her father was. She didn't feel very close with her family, and she definitely grew distant from her father as time passed on. And there is a lot of conflict for her between the life that she had in Italy and the influence that her father brought to their family from Morocco, that she kind of felt a little bit out of place in southern Italy. And then having left all of that behind to go to London and build this new life for herself, but realizing that maybe it's not all that she was hoping it would be either. But she does feel a certain level of success at having built this life for herself, apart from the family that she grew up in. Her sister is Muslim and conforms to a lot of the requirements for that, whereas she personally left the Muslim religion, and I don't know if she's explicitly an atheist, but she definitely doesn't believe in like wearing a hijab or anything like that, and her sister clash about that a lot. Her sister actually has taken over running her father's bar now that their father has passed on, which he actually had written in a letter to his daughters asking them to continue on this bar that he was running in southern Italy. And it operates kind of as like, I don't know if immigrant bar is the right way to describe it, but it attracts a crowd of people who are not originally from Italy and who bond over the differences that they have with the locals. So the story is spliced between her dealing with this internal conflict of, do I stay here in Italy and help my sister run my father's bar, even though I feel very disconnected from my life here and my family? Or do I return to London, where I also kind of feel out of place and like I'm just sort of following my roommate and doing what she tells me to do and going on these like yoga retreats and things that I don't really believe in. So that's one section of the book. And then you also get to follow her father's life in Morocco when he was growing up and how he decided of his own volition to leave his own family behind, because he was the only one who left he had a lot of brothers and one sister, and he left their whole family behind to move to Italy by himself. Eventually he had, you know, a path to get to Italy, but that is where he ended up settling for his life. I thought that was genius to see these two very different people, you know, they're related, but they are very different, and what inspires them to feel like they need to leave their home country and move on to, quote, bigger and better things. Because it is very different, the things that drive each of them to make these decisions. They don't have similar motivations, I would say. And so she is also kind of grappling with the fact that she only knows about her father's past through the stories that he told her. And she has no way of verifying if these stories are even really true, but it's all that she has left of him now that he's gone. I think if you have ever left your home and or your family behind, even if you're not going to a different country, but if you're just leaving them, you know, 100 miles away, 50 miles away, say, however far, and you feel an internal conflict about having abandoned that part of yourself to create a new one, I think you should definitely read this book. It reflects a lot on that topic from two very different perspectives. And I think that you can get a lot out of reading how Mina is trying to find herself in this very emotionally fraught time in her life since her father has just passed on. Those are the 4 books that I have finished for book clubs so far this year. I feel like I've had pretty decent success. I mean, I liked, what was that, 3 out of 4? Or I guess I like 2 out of 4 of them. But for me, that's a good ratio, I would say. A lot of times when I'm in a lot of book clubs, I'm really not feeling the books, but I'm just doing it so I can, you know, get to talk about books with other people and compare opinions and compare thoughts about the themes and whatever. I'll probably stay in the book clubs for the next few months, so if you want another one of these videos, let me know. And if you have a similar problem of joining book clubs and not liking them, the solution is, which I do also do this, but the solution is to look for what is called a silent book club near you. Silent book club is usually when you go and you bring your own book that you're reading and everybody talks about the books that they are each reading. You all share like what's going on in your book and if you like it or not. And then you read for a little bit and then you can share again if you want, or however your local silent book club is structured. But if you have the book club problem that I have, that is the answer. I just sometimes want to talk about the same book with somebody else who also read it. So that's why I do this to myself. Bye.